All praise is due to Allah, the most wise, the most merciful. We seek His guidance, His forgiveness, and His protection from the evils within ourselves and the harm of our own actions. Dear brothers and sisters, this title may sound strong, even uncomfortable. Keep your mouth shut. But when we reflect deeply, we realize it is not harshness, it is mercy. It is guidance, it is protection. Allah has blessed human beings with many gifts, but among the most dangerous and powerful is the tongue. A small piece of flesh can raise a person to the highest levels of Jannah or drag them into deep regret in this world and the next. How many relationships were destroyed because someone spoke without thinking? How many hearts were broken because someone did not remain silent? And how many sins were written not by actions, but by words? Allah reminds us that not a single word escapes record. Every joke, every insult, every piece of gossip, every careless comment written, silence, in many situations, is not weakness. Silence is strength. When anger rises, silence becomes worship. When gossip begins, silence becomes protection. When ego wants to speak, silence becomes humility. A wise believer understands that not every truth needs to be spoken, and not every opinion needs to be shared. Wisdom is knowing when to speak and when not to. Education teaches us knowledge, but faith teaches us self-control. Many people regret what they said. Few regret what they did not say. Silence trains the soul. It gives the heart time to consult wisdom instead of emotion. It allows mercy to replace arrogance and patience to replace rage. Ask yourself, will these words please Allah? Will they benefit someone? Will I be proud of these words on the day I meet my Lord? If the answer is no, then silence is the better choice. This does not mean we never speak. No. Islam encourages good speech, kind reminders, and truth spoken with wisdom. But it teaches us that speech without benefit is a loss, and silence without harm is a gain. Okay? So let us educate ourselves and our hearts. Let us discipline our tongues before they discipline us with regret. Because sometimes the most powerful act of faith is simple. Keep your mouth shut for the sake of Allah. May Allah grant us wisdom in our speech, sincerity in our intentions, and silence that brings us closer to Him. Silence holds a unique and often underestimated position in faith. It is not merely the absence of speech, but a conscious spiritual discipline that protects the heart, refines character, and strengthens one's relationship with Allah. When a believer learns the value of silence, they begin to understand that restraint is not loss, but preservation. The heart is deeply influenced by what the tongue releases, and unchecked speech can slowly harden the heart, distract it from remembrance, and pull it toward arrogance, anger, or heedlessness. Silence, on the other hand, creates space for reflection, humility, and awareness of Allah. Faith is not only built through actions like prayer and fasting, but also through what a person chooses to withhold. Many sins are not committed by the hands or feet, but by words spoken without thought. Backbiting, slander, mockery, lies, exaggeration, and idle talk all stem from a failure to control the tongue. Silence acts as a shield against these spiritual diseases. When a believer pauses before speaking, they allow their conscience and faith to intervene, asking whether these words will bring benefit or harm. This pause itself is an act of worship, because it shows mindfulness of accountability before Allah. The heart and the tongue are closely connected. When the heart is calm, the tongue is controlled. When the heart is disturbed by anger, jealousy, or pride, the tongue becomes reckless. Silence helps calm the inner state of a person. It reduces impulsive reactions and prevents emotions from dictating behavior. In moments of anger, silence protects faith by stopping words that could cause lifelong regret or sever relationships. A single sentence spoken in anger can destroy years of trust, while silence can preserve dignity and peace. Silence also nurtures sincerity and faith. Excessive talking often leads to showing off, arguing, or seeking validation from others. A person may speak not because it is beneficial, but because they want to be noticed, praised, or proven right. Silence weakens the ego and strengthens humility. When a believer speaks less, they listen more both to people and to their own conscience. Listening helps them recognize their flaws, improve their intentions, and grow spiritually. Another powerful aspect of silence in faith is its role in remembrance. Constant speech fills the mind with noise, leaving little room for reflection on Allah's signs, one's purpose, and the reality of the hereafter. Silence allows the heart to settle and become receptive to remembrance. In quiet moments, a believer becomes more aware of their dependence on Allah, their shortcomings, and the need for repentance. This awareness deepens faith and brings tranquility that words alone cannot provide. Silence also protects a believer from unnecessary conflicts. Many arguments do not begin because of major disagreements, but because of careless words, sarcasm, or the desire to have the last word. Faith teaches patience, and patience is closely tied to silence. Choosing not to respond to provocation is not defeat, it is self-mastery. A believer who practices silence learns that preserving peace is often more valuable than winning an argument. This mindset reflects trust in Allah, knowing that justice and truth do not always need immediate verbal defense. From an educational perspective, silence trains self-discipline. Just as fasting teaches control over desires, silence teaches control over speech. This discipline carries into other areas of faith, helping a believer resist temptations, manage emotions, and remain consistent in worship. It builds inner strength and emotional intelligence, qualities essential for strong character. A person who controls their tongue is more likely to control their actions and intentions. And silence also encourages thoughtful, purposeful speech. When words become fewer, they become more meaningful. A believer who values silence does not waste speech on what is useless or harmful. Instead, when they do speak, their words carry weight, wisdom, and sincerity. This balance reflects a mature understanding of faith, where speech is used as a tool for goodness and silence is used as a safeguard against harm. Come some verse. The power of silence in faith lies in its ability to protect the heart from corruption, the character from weakness, and the believer from regret. It transforms restraint into strength and quietness into consciousness of Allah. Through silence, faith becomes deeper, more intentional, and more resilient in a world filled with noise and distraction. Words in Islam are not casual or meaningless. They are a trust placed upon every human being. This trust, known as amana, carries weight because speech reflects what is hidden within the heart. Every word a person chooses to release is a moral responsibility, not a neutral act. Faith teaches that speech is not owned by the speaker alone, but entrusted to them by Allah to be used with care, honesty, and purpose. When this trust is neglected, the consequences appear not only in social harm, but also in spiritual accountability. The concept of words as a trust reminds a believer that nothing spoken is lost or forgotten. Speech does not disappear into the air, it leaves an imprint. Words can heal or destroy, guide or mislead, unite or divide. Because of this impact, faith demands awareness before speaking. Careless words may seem small, but their effects can be long-lasting. A single false statement can ruin reputations, break families, or plant doubt in hearts. Recognizing speech as an amana forces a believer to slow down doubt and consider whether their words fulfill the responsibility given to them. Accountability plays a central role in understanding this trust. Every word is recorded, whether spoken publicly or whispered privately. This reality instills consciousness that speech is part of one's deeds. Just as actions are weighed, so are words. Many people focus on visible sins while overlooking verbal ones, yet faith places immense emphasis on the tongue. Idle talk, exaggeration, sarcasm that humiliates others, and spreading unverified information all fall under misuse of this trust. When believers internalize accountability, they begin to treat silence as safer than careless speech. Truthfulness is a core requirement of this trust. Words are meant to convey truth, not convenience. Lying, even in small matters, damages the integrity of the soul. When a person lies frequently, their heart becomes desensitized, making dishonesty easier over time. Treating speech as an amana protects the believer from this gradual moral decay. Moral decay, it encourages honesty even when truth is uncomfortable or costly. This commitment strengthens character and builds credibility, both in society and in the sight of Allah. Zakal, speech as a trust also demands kindness and responsibility toward others. Faith does not allow words to be weapons of harm. Insults, mockery, and harsh criticism may satisfy emotions temporarily, but they violate the trust of speech. Words are meant to uplift, correct with wisdom, and promote goodness. Even when disagreement is necessary, faith teaches that speech should remain respectful and constructive. Using words responsibly reflects mercy and emotional intelligence, qualities deeply rooted in strong faith. Another dimension of this trust is guarding the privacy and dignity of others. Sharing secrets, exposing faults, or engaging in gossip is a betrayal of speech. Such behavior may appear socially acceptable, but spiritually it erodes trustworthiness. A believer who understands amana recognizes that just because information is known, it does not mean it should be shared. Silence in these moments becomes an act of loyalty and fear of Allah. Protecting others' dignity through restrained speech strengthens social bonds and purifies the heart from malice. Educationally, treating words as a trust trains critical thinking and mindfulness. A believer learns to filter speech through purpose. Is this beneficial? Is it accurate? Is it necessary? This process builds maturity and wisdom. Rather than reacting emotionally, the believer responds thoughtfully. Over time, this discipline reshapes personality, making speech more intentional and less impulsive. It also reduces regret, as most regret stems from words spoken without foresight. Speech as an amana also influences leadership, teaching, and influence. Those who speak to others, parents, teachers, leaders, carry an even heavier responsibility. Their words shape beliefs, attitudes, and behavior. Misusing speech in positions of influence can misguide many people, multiplying accountability. Recognizing this weight encourages humility and caution. It reminds speakers that authority in speech is not a privilege, but a responsibility that requires sincerity and wisdom. Ultimately, understanding words as a trust transforms the way a believer communicates. Speech becomes purposeful, ethical, and conscious of consequences. Silence becomes preferable to misuse, and thoughtful speech becomes a form of worship. When a believer honors this trust, their words align with faith, their heart remains guarded, and their accountability before Allah becomes a source of motivation rather than fear. Wisdom is often misunderstood as the ability to speak eloquently or argue convincingly, but in reality, wisdom is more clearly seen in restraint. Silence, when practiced intentionally, reflects depth of understanding and emotional maturity. A person who speaks constantly reveals everything they think, while a wise person filters their thoughts, selecting only what is beneficial. This selective approach to speech shows awareness of consequences and respect for both oneself and others. Silence, in this sense, is not emptiness, it is thoughtful presence. One of the clearest signs of wisdom is knowing that not every situation requires a response. Many conflicts escalate because individuals feel compelled to speak, defend themselves, or prove a point. Silence interrupts this cycle. It creates space for emotions to settle and for reason to take over. A wise person understands that immediate reactions are often driven by ego or anger, not clarity. By choosing silence, they prevent temporary emotions from causing permanent damage. Silence also demonstrates self-confidence. Those who lack inner security often feel the need to constantly express opinions, dominate conversations, or seek validation through words. Wisdom is rooted in contentment and self-awareness. A mature individual does not fear being misunderstood or overlooked. They are comfortable with silence because their worth is not tied to how much they speak. This inner stability allows them to listen attentively, learn from others, and respond thoughtfully when necessary. Listening is an essential component of wisdom, and silence makes listening possible. When a person is silent, they gain access to perspectives beyond their own. They observe tone, intention, and emotion, not just words. This awareness leads to better judgment and more balanced responses. Wisdom grows through understanding, and understanding cannot exist without listening. Silence, therefore, becomes a gateway to knowledge and insight. Silence also protects a person from embarrassment and regret. Many people wish they could take back words spoken hastily. Wise individuals avoid this by thinking before speaking. They understand that words cannot be retrieved once released. Silence provides a buffer between thought and speech, allowing time for reflection. This reflection often reveals that what seemed urgent to say was unnecessary or harmful. Through silence, wisdom shields a person from self-inflicted harm. In moments of disagreement, silence reflects emotional intelligence. A wise person distinguishes between productive discussion and pointless argument. When conversation no longer seeks understanding but victory, silence becomes the superior response. It signals maturity and prevents escalation. Choosing silence in such moments does not mean surrendering truth. It means preserving dignity and peace. Wisdom recognizes that some battles are won by walking away rather than speaking louder. Silence also plays a crucial role in personal growth. Constant speaking leaves little room for self-examination. Silence forces a person to confront their own thoughts, intentions, and flaws. This internal dialogue is essential for growth and self-correction. A wise individual values this introspection and uses silence as a tool for self-improvement. Through quiet reflection, they become more aware of their weaknesses and more intentional in their actions. In social settings, silence often commands respect. People tend to value the words of someone who speaks sparingly and thoughtfully. When such a person speaks, others listen. Their words carry weight because they are not diluted by excess. Wisdom understands this dynamic and avoids unnecessary speech. Rather than competing for attention, the wise allow their character and actions to speak for them. Silence also reflects patience, a key element of wisdom. Impatience pushes people to interrupt, respond prematurely, or speak without full understanding. Silence slows this process. It allows events to unfold and information to become clearer. A patient, silent approach leads to better decisions and fewer mistakes. Wisdom is not rushed, it is deliberate and measured. Ultimately, silence as a form of wisdom is about mastery. Mastery over impulses, emotions, and ego. It shows that a person is guided by understanding rather than reaction. Such silence is not passive. It is intentional and powerful. It protects relationships, preserves dignity, and enhances clarity. Through silence, wisdom manifests not in the volume of words, but in their quality and timing. Self-discipline is a cornerstone of personal development, and faith provides a structured framework through which this discipline can be cultivated. One of the most practical expressions of self-discipline is control over speech. The tongue often reacts faster than the mind, especially in moments of anger, excitement, or pride. Faith-based discipline trains a person to pause, reflect, and restrain themselves before speaking. This restraint is not suppression but conscious control, guided by awareness of accountability and purpose. Daily life presents countless situations where speech becomes a test of discipline. In moments of anger, words are often used as weapons, intended to hurt or dominate. Faith teaches that anger clouds judgment and weakens character. Practicing silence during anger interrupts this process. It allows emotions to cool and prevents statements that could cause lasting damage. Over time, this practice strengthens emotional regulation, making calm responses more natural and reducing impulsive behavior. The gossip is another common area where self-discipline through silence is tested. Conversations may drift toward discussing others' faults, often disguised as concern or humor. Faith encourages believers to resist this temptation, recognizing the spiritual and social harm it causes. Remaining silent in such situations requires strength, especially when participation feels socially expected. This silence, however, reflects inner discipline and moral courage. It also reinforces personal integrity as a person learns to value righteousness over acceptance. And arguments and debates also challenge self-discipline. The desire to be right or to have the last word can overpower wisdom. Faith-based discipline teaches that winning an argument is less important than preserving respect and peace. Choosing silence when discussion becomes hostile demonstrates control over ego. It shows that a person values character over dominance. This restraint often diffuses tension and sets a higher standard for communication, pride presents a subtler test of self-discipline. Speaking excessively about one's achievements or opinions may seem harmless, but it can reveal a need for validation. Faith encourages humility, and silence helps cultivate it. By speaking less about oneself, a person learns to detach their self-worth from recognition. This discipline fosters sincerity and reduces arrogance. Silence in moments of pride redirects focus from self-promotion to self-awareness. Self-discipline through silence also applies to moments of excitement and joy. Oversharing, exaggeration, or careless promises often occur when emotions are high. Faith encourages balance, reminding believers to remain mindful in all emotional states. Silence in such moments prevents misunderstandings and unfulfilled commitments. It teaches consistency and reliability, traits essential for strong character. From an educational perspective, practicing silence as self-discipline sharpens awareness. A person becomes more attentive to their surroundings, their intentions, and the effects of their words. This awareness leads to better decision-making and improved communication skills. Instead of reacting automatically, the disciplined individual responds intentionally. Over time, this habit reshapes personality, making patience and thoughtfulness dominant traits. Self-discipline in speech also strengthens relationships. Many conflicts arise not from major issues, but from careless words spoken without restraint. Silence acts as a protective barrier, preventing unnecessary hurt. It allows space for empathy and understanding. When a person listens more and speaks less, others feel respected and valued. This strengthens trust and emotional bonds. Silence as a disciplined practice also supports long-term personal growth. Each moment of restraint reinforces self-control, making it easier to resist other harmful behaviors. Just as physical discipline builds muscle, verbal discipline builds character. Faith provides motivation for this effort by linking self-discipline to spiritual reward and inner peace. This connection transforms restraint from a burden into a meaningful practice. Ultimately, applying silence as a tool of self-discipline integrates faith into everyday life. It moves belief beyond theory into action. By controlling speech in moments of anger, gossip, argument, and pride, a person develops resilience and emotional maturity. This discipline shapes a balanced character, guided by consciousness, patience, and responsibility rather than impulse.